welcome back to another video. My name is Megan. I'm a freshman sophomore at ASU studying nursing. And today I thought I would do a video all about how to get a 4.0 in college. Last semester I got a 4.06, and I think the previous semester I got a 3.9 something, 9.8. So yeah, I thought I would share some tips and tricks that I have for getting A's in college overall. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So first things first, what I always like to do at the beginning of the semester is print out the syllabi. I like to have a hard copy of it. I use it almost like a planner essentially, because in the syllabi you have every assignment, every exam date, and you're not going to get mixed up because, for example, with a planner, you're transferring over the information from your syllabi to the planner, so you could mess up one of the dates or mess up the assignment. So I always like to use the syllabi as like a hard copy, and what I like to do is actually cross off assignments and weeks and lessons as I go through the semester. So for example, what I would like to do is take a red pen, because the red's like finished for me, and just if I finish, reading chapter 47 and 50, I'll cross it off with a red pen. Or if I turn in my shadow health assignment for nursing, I would cross it off with a red pen. That way I know that it's done and everything is all good. And I also use that as like a week ahead glance. So before I go to class, I'll look at everything that I have to do, because a lot of my classes will say like, do this before lab, or do this after lab, or do this reading before you come to class, or do this reading after you come to class, things like that, so I know kind of what to do before and after class. That way I can go to class prepared. Second thing that I like to do is use my online resources. So I do have a physical copy of a planner. I think I got it off of Amazon. I'll leave it linked down below if I can find it. But I don't really use it as much. I don't really know why, but in high school I used my planner all the time. Planners were a must-have for me, but in college I started using more like things like Google Docs, and I would actually create, or not Google Docs, Google Calendar, and then I would actually create little week tables almost on Pages or Word or Google Docs, and that way I would have a week ahead glance for all of my classes. So with the syllabi, it's nice because you get that specific course. So like say you have a class on Monday, on Sunday night, you can look at that specific course. But I also like to have all of my classes in one place so that I can see everything that I have to do for that day or for that week all in one place. That way I'm not forgetting something or not allocating my time properly, if that makes sense. So if I have to study for an exam that I have in one of my classes, and then I forget that I also have other assignments in my other classes, I'll go to my weekly calendar that I create to kind of see what else I have to do during that week. Now I also feel time plan a little bit better too. And second thing with the Google Calendar, I like that because I'm always on my technology. So for all of my classes, we always have our laptops up and out. So it's really convenient to have all of my things online so that I can go back to them whenever I need to. Like if I'm taking lecture notes or something and I just remember, oh my gosh, I have this thing to do, and then I can go check my Google Calendar because it's all right there. Which is probably why I don't use my actual planner as often, just because it's paper and we really don't use paper that much in college, which is another tip too. Try to do everything online. In college, you really don't need paper copies of anything. Everything is pretty much online, at least at my school, so that's kind of why I transferred my calendars and planners to everything online based. Another tip going into studying is define what you mean by studying, because I know for me studying is always very difficult because studying is not a measurable thing. It's more of just like, oh, I'll just study. But for me, I like to actually write down what that means. So, for example, if I have an exam coming up on Friday, which I do, I would say like, okay, I want to practice 10 NCLEX style questions every day. For those of you who don't know, NCLEX is a nursing type of exam. So a lot of our courses are based off of NCLEX style questions. It's kind of like the SAT for nursing. So I'll say like practice 10 NCLEX style questions a day, and I want to watch a video on YouTube over infection control, and I want to read chapter 47, and I want to do or make note cards or flashcards. So I actually kind of write down exactly what studying means. That way I can kind of cross that off my to-do list and it's less vague, and that way I can actually allocate more time effectively towards my studying. So that's kind of a tip that I've picked up in the past couple of weeks in terms of studying. Another tip that I use for studying, or just for being successful in school. Again, this is not going to be for everybody, but I prefer reading the textbook. I think that textbooks, especially in the science courses, are very beneficial because a lot of the PowerPoints are bulletin points, and I'm sure that other majors are like that too, where you go to class and you sit there and the teacher kind of gives you PowerPoints with bulletin points of what's important, and you don't really get like a story with it. And I'm the type of person that likes to have the full context of something. So during the class, like they'll say like, oh, like this disease is a viral disease and it has these symptoms and whatnot, but I like to know kind of more information about that. So I'll go to the textbook and read up on whatever that disease was, and it'll give me a little bit more context as to like how it's transmitted, and like it's more of just a full picture essentially. So that's what I like to use a textbook for. Then again, not everyone is going to be able to sit down and read a textbook. Which in the beginning of the semester I will read the textbook. I'll be like, oh, like I'll read 10 chapters a day or whatever, which is like ridiculous, but and then as you go through the semester, you kind of are like, oh, like I don't want to read anymore. So then you'll kind of just use it as like a reference. So like if you see something that you don't know much about, you can go, oh, and I'll go look at the glossary and find out where that page is and just read that little section of whatever that book is trying to tell you. So yeah, read the textbook if you're that kind of person. Another tip that I like is to talk it through with people. I'm a very talkative person. I like to talk a lot, and I use my hands too a lot. I don't know if you've noticed, but so when I'm studying, whether I'm just in my room by myself or if I'm in a group setting, I will speak about the topic, if that makes sense, just because I think that reiterating it out loud is very beneficial to your memory, because it's almost like muscle memory if you can say it out loud. Same thing with like hand motions as well. If you can make a story with it and give a full picture to what you're trying to talk about, you can kind of remember a little bit better, I think, which is what I like to do. So I'll like read out loud or something. Like I'll reread my notes and I'll read it out loud. Another thing that I like to do for studying or just to be successful in school in general is to take my notes before class. That way I kind of have a general idea of what's going on. And that way, if I have any questions about the topic, I can ask it during class. So that means for me, our teachers usually post PowerPoints online through whatever, Blackboard or Canvas, whatever they use. And then I'll go on to that PowerPoint for the week or whatever, or maybe I'll do it for like 2 weeks out. And I will take my notes on Google Docs. And then for class, I'll go in and I'll already have my notes taken, and that way I can just add whatever the professor is saying to my notes without having to like try and get everything down, like spoken and written on my notes. So it's a big time saver, I think, and it's very stress-free when I'm in class, because then I don't have to worry about writing down what the professor is saying and what's on the PowerPoint before they change the PowerPoint slide over. So that's what I like to do for that, and that way I also have a general idea of what's going on in the class before I get there, which is very nice. And then for me, I know that I just said that I liked everything on my laptop, but I do prefer paper copies of things for some reason. I don't know, I've never been like an ebook person or like a Kindle person. I've always preferred the physical book. I don't know why. I think I just learned better that way. I like to actually be able to highlight it and such. So what I'll do is after class, I will print out a copy of my notes, and then I'll go through and highlight definitions, main topics, and then maybe exam questions, because sometimes your teachers or professors will give you examples of exam questions, which I like to highlight those because it kind of teaches you what their exam style is going to be. So I like to do that just because I like having physical copies, and if you're the same way, I recommend printing out your notes just because it's really easy to learn for those of you that are more of a physical person if you have the physical notes. And I don't know, I just like it a lot, and then I can group them all together and I can take them with me wherever I go. I don't know, I like it. Another thing that I really do enjoy is finding example questions. So I know for my classes right now, I'm in summer school, so we actually got these nursing like test taking books almost. They're like SAT prep books essentially, but they're for every single class, which is what my camera's actually standing on right now. But they have like giant textbook style, or not textbook, study guide for every specific class, like pharmacology, med surg, pediatrics, whatever your class is, they have a textbook for it essentially. It's the ATI books. And then in that they have specific sections. So I just did one the other day, and it's like a summary section about infection control, and there's like 6 or 7 NCLEX style questions at the end of it that you can practice with, and they show you the answers and the explanations, which is super nice. So if your classes or major has something similar to that, or if they don't, you can always try to find one elsewhere. But using those are really helpful just because it's a summary section, and so you get to kind of focus on the main points in the broad overview of everything, and then you also get practice questions, which I love having because, once again, NCLEX, for those of you that don't know, is like the nursing SAT, essentially, that you take before you can get your nursing license. And the questions are very particular. It's a very different style of exam. So having example questions to kind of practice with is very beneficial because that's how most of the exams throughout nursing school are like. And then once you finish nursing school, you have to take the NCLEX exam. So it's really beneficial to have practice taking those types of questions. And you can find those and on different websites. I'm sure Quizlet has some. If you have that, I know we have like an ebook module type of website called Evolve that they have practice questions on there. So for anyone in nursing school, look up different NCLEX style questions. I know there are apps too that'll give you practice questions. So practice questions are your best friend. That's the last thing that I would say for getting a 4.0 is just dedicating time to it. I know my freshman year, I was super into just like studying. Like I literally like didn't have friends. Like I would just like study all the time. And the friends that I did have were like all my nursing school friends, so they were also always studying all the time. So just kind of focusing in on that and always making it a priority because, I mean, especially when it comes to college, you're paying a lot of money to be there, and why wouldn't you study, essentially? But yeah, for me, I would always, do something beforehand, whether it was taking notes or reading the chapter before class, and then that was a big time commitment, obviously, because you have to put in time to do that. And then going to class, I always try to go to classes because, once again, you're paying for them, so they're very expensive. Why not go if you're going to pay for it? And then after classes, I honestly wish that I would study more like directly after my classes, which is just not the reality of what I would do, which I should do. But tip for those of you, if you can, get into the habit of studying right after your classes, just so that way you can reiterate the knowledge and it just kind of sticks with you a little bit more if you hear it over and over again in the same day kind of thing. I didn't do that, but you should. I was more of the type was like, oh, like an exam is next week, I better study today. Which is obviously another time commitment. Essentially just make time for it because that's what you're there for. It's always your number one priority. That was how I looked at it. Before I would go out and hang out with friends, I was like, okay, like, have I finished this and this and this? Am I prepared for next week? Am I prepared for the exam that I have coming up? And then if all of those were yeses, then I was like, okay, like, I deserve to go out and be with friends or go to dinner, whatever it is. But always make it your number one priority, which is just a good habit to get into if you're going into your freshman year, is just make it your priority. Because if you set that standard going into college, it's a lot easier to maintain that as you go throughout. And then once again, if you just start doing things early, which is always like easier said than done, like procrastinating is such an easy thing to fall into, but if you just start things early and get things done ahead of time, it's a lot easier to like go out with your friends and not be so stressed out. Like, I don't know, there were multiple times that people were like, oh, like, do you want to go to a concert tonight? And I was like, oh, I have an exam tomorrow, I can't do that. But if you do things ahead of time and get yourself on the right foot early on, it's a lot easier to allow yourself to go out when you have an exam the next week or something. So number one tip, I guess, would just be to be prepared, be planned and organized, and you should be set to study and be fine. Just make a plan and you'll do great. I feel like this was like all over the map and there were so many things that was just not organized. I didn't write any of this down. I just kind of like thought about it as I went along. But hopefully you guys found some beneficial knowledge from this whole video. Yeah, good luck to you guys. I hope you guys get a 4.0 and I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, whatever it is that you want to do. I would much appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next video.